Can I get in trouble for telling you these secrets? Maybe. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning back into Chickanic. Hope everybody's having a great week. Yes, that's right, I'm spilling the beans. I'm letting you know everything there is wrong with the PB-8010s and 9010s and the Stihl BR800Xs. But before we get into today's video, if you're a fan of saving time, money, and frustration while fixing your own small engine equipment while watching in-depth tutorials, you've come to the right place because that's what I do. I upload a couple times a week, and if that sounds interesting, hit that like button, smash that subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, and please leave a comment. I love to read through the comments, and I'll reply to all the early commenters. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm an Echo dealer. Why would I spill the beans on them and let you know about all the issues these units might have? That's because I had to warranty 3. Yeah, I said 3 PB-9010 carburetors this week, and that's a little excessive to me, and I'm going to tell you why. So first, let's take you to the Wayback Machine. Stihl and Echo both were on a race to come out with the biggest, baddest backpack blower on the market. Echo was already leading with the PB-770T, and it was awesome. It was not that heavy, and it was powerful, and it beat Stihl a little bit in everything when it came to cubic feet per minute, miles per hour, and yada, yada, yada. So Stihl, they were on a mission to come out with something bad, and they decided to come out with the BR800X. Well, it had some issues too, but we'll get into that later. Now, when Echo came out with their first model of the PB-8010, it sold like hotcakes. Everybody was about it. It was huge. It was bad. It would blow an entire parking lot off in minutes, and I sold a ton of them. But you know what? I worked on every single one that I sold, unfortunately. Now, Echo, they knew there was issues with these. They had strap issues. They had the static wire issue where it would come apart from the inside of the housing and get into the fan and cause shards to shoot out. So there was definitely issues, but Echo was very good about addressing these. They sent out a recall. They didn't even wait until, you know, it became an issue. They sent out a recall. They had all the units brought back in so those units could be fixed, and they were sent on their way. Unfortunately, though, there was more issues. A little while after that, I started seeing units come in burned up, and these were only a few months old, 3-4 months old, and most of them were owned by my commercial guys that I know were using good fuel, good oil, and all their other equipment was fine. By inspecting these units, I found that where the cylinder met the bottom part of this engine's base, it was loose and it was leaking, so it was sucking air in and causing these engines to burn up. That's what I think. Some other people think it has something to do with the carburetor. It could have been. Some people have to do with the piston. I'm not sure, but I do know that I did see a lot of leakage around those cylinder bases. So once again, Echo was completely fine with doing a warranty on all of those. They sent short blocks. I replaced the short blocks. But unfortunately, when it came and I put the new short block on, the last thing I go to do is put the rewind on, and I find that there's no tapped holes for the rewind to go back on. Like, they're not tapped. What? No, that's not good. I'm not tapping the holes as I put in the old screws, even though they were very coarse thread. And when I called and said, this is going to be an issue, they said, it's fine, go ahead and put the screws in, it'll hold. No. Every single one that I did came back in a few weeks with the bolts broke off from the rewind. So once again, Echo realized this is an issue. So they let us put new short blocks on top of all of those ones. And I ended up changing straps, static wires, tubes, short blocks twice on all of these units that I sold. It would have been much better off just to give them new blowers. But fortunately, Echo was very good about this. They just kept warranting everything, paying me to fix it, which, okay, fine. Now, the bad part about that is it put a terrible taste in everybody's mouth. I mean, I convinced a lot of Stihl guys to go with these Echoes, and whenever all this bad stuff happened, they're not going to want to buy another one. A lot of them realized that when it was running, it was a heck of a machine. So when Echo decided to come out with a PB-9010 where they fixed all these issues, made sure that none of those things were going to be a problem again, my guys bought them up. And everything's been going great for about a year, until this week. When I get 3 of my commercial customers, different ones come in with blowers, and they all have the same issue of the carburetor not wanting to get enough gas through, I know there's an issue. So this blower right here might look really familiar to you. It's because you saw it 2 videos ago when I brought home this blower and the BR800X that I was going to do a comparison video on, which I ended up not being able to because the Stihl was burned up by the customer. And I simply adjusted the carburetor on this one, which I've done a lot of times on other units, and it worked fine. It lasted, kept running, so I gave it back to the customer thinking it was fixed. Unfortunately, the customer brought it back a few days later and said, yes, it did run good for a while, but then went back to doing the exact same thing. So I had to dig deeper. Now, he was the first of the 3 to bring his blower back, and when I opened up the carburetor, immediately I realized what was wrong. Now these are the WYL Walbro carburetors that go on these units, and I've already had this apart, so I'm just holding it together here so you can see what it looks like when it is together. When you take off the primer bulb, and then you take off the purge plate, and then you take off this other plate here that has the needle inside of it, you get to the body of the carburetor. Now, once I got to this section, I've pushed it back in now, but what I'm finding in all of these carburetors, even though everything else was fine, the diaphragms were still in good condition and everything. Why they did this, I don't know. Why it's not just pressed in there, but these are the jet that I just popped out. Whenever I went into this carburetor the first time, it was already pooched out. So it only has this O-ring, and it really should just be a pressed in piece, I think. I mean, you know what size it needs to be. I don't understand the whole O-ring thing. But it has an O-ring here that holds it in, and it was just pooched out of it. And all 3 of the carburetors that I took apart had this issue. Now, I wouldn't have exactly just warrantied the carburetors for this issue. I could have got a kit, put another O-ring in there maybe, and see if it would seal. It's never gonna seal like it will whenever it's brand new though, so I didn't try that. But also the chokes were broke on these carburetors, so they weren't working. And like I said, Echo's fine about warranting the carburetors, so I switched them out. So my main purpose of this video is if you do own one of these and you're fixing it yourself, you might be out of warranty and you go to put a kit in, the kit comes with the O-ring to put that jet back in. And hopefully that's your issue, because that's what I'm seeing on a lot of these units. So other than that, these has been great blowers. The straps are all good now, the tubes are good, the throttle control's good. If they're really bad about taking care of their tube situation, a lot of them cram them up into their trucks, stuff like that. I mean, these blowers are completely abused when they come into the shop. Lawn care guys, they know they're gonna buy another one. They're there to get it done and go home. So a lot of times if you're taking care of one, if you're a homeowner or something, you're not gonna see a lot of the issues that I see at the shop. I haven't seen any issues with the cylinders with these. They've been doing really good. Every one I've opened up has looked perfectly pristine. The mufflers stay on, the rewinds have no issues. The carburetors, they used to get a little loose on the 8010s, but they're doing fine on the 9010s now, so they must have addressed that issue. Everything with the air filtration system's fine. The tank and line situation's good. I'm just seeing this issue with the carburetor. And one more thing. The kill wire that's connected to your coil right behind here, it comes out right down here, and this one has already been electrical taped. And it's supposed to go in this slot right here, and then it goes down here to this clump of wiring, and it's been electrical taped here too, because this I see a lot of issues with it wearing holes in it and stuff like that. Just from the vibration itself, it will wear a hole in it, either from right here where it's in there or down here where it's in this clump of wiring. So it's something else you might check. If you're running your blower and it just cuts out for no reason, definitely check your kill wire. So now don't let this put a bad taste in your mouth, because when these things are running, they are unstoppable. They are a force to be reckoned with, and they are still the baddest blower on the market. Believe me, do not run and say, oh, I need a Stihl instead of this thing, because you know what? The Stihl's got their issues too. Now, if you've been watching, you know I'm not a Stihl dealer. I don't get a bunch of Stihl BR800Xs in the shop. I've seen a ton of the 600 and 700s, and we know all of them have the issue with the cylinders leaking. They're very bad about that. But the 6 and 700s, they're pretty good blowers. I've never seen too many issues with them other than the cylinder leaking, and then sometimes every once in a while they would have carburetor issues, like the carburetor lever would just break. So there's issues with those, but not that bad. I mean, nothing like the BR800X I've heard. So I wanted to do some investigation since I did not have the experience with them, and I found this channel called Wallys Workin on YouTube, and he has a great video on it. I will leave a link in the description box below to his video because he went over the BR800X to a T and let you know everything that's been going wrong with them. He must have a shop or work in a shop that sees tons and tons of landscaper equipment because the units he had in there were definitely well used. One of the units that he was going over, he was giving examples of the things that he sees most broken on them, and it was really funny because he said the muffler would come loose, the bottom bolt hole would bust out, and then it would break the muffler off and shear both bolts into the cylinder. Well, thank goodness the one that I was working on in that video a couple ago that I'm still getting parts for, I checked the muffler and it's already busting out in the bottom bolt hole. So it's got the two up here and the one down here, and this one is almost busting out, so that is an issue. He also told about the overhead valve area, the ring around where the overhead valve cover sits on, it just cracks, the engine just cracks. And then also once the muffler comes loose, it cracks the bottom mount for the engine. It has issues with the pull rope. Whenever you let it go, it would sling back and hit the choke lever and break the choke lever off, which was funny because the one I was working on didn't have a choke lever, so I assume that's probably what happened to that one too. But yeah, he goes real in depth with it, letting you know all the issues that it has. And guys, there's plenty, so I'm gonna leave a link to him right below in the description box. And last but not least, the only other complaint I get from people is that it is so powerful that it will want to jerk around on them because it's blowing so hard. So you gotta have a tough back and a tough grip on them. They are extremely large. I mean, it's like having a motorcycle on your back, really. But if you're a landscaper, it is the top of the line, best of the best. So I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for spilling the beans, but I'm just telling the truth here. And if you're a mechanic working on these things, it's definitely something to look at for your customers, and hopefully it'll save you some time, money, and frustration in the future. Before I head out though, I do want to announce the winner for my Christmas present giveaway of the Gulu GT 4000 Jump Starter. Anthony Chahoti, he was the first one to guess 66 carburetors. I had over 2,200 comments and a lot of good guesses. Thank you all so much. But you, Anthony, are the winner of the Gulu GT 4000 Jump Starter. I will need you to send me an email to chickanic@yahoo.com because for some reason, whenever I went to go reply to your comment, I went to go pin it to the top and I hit the delete button instead of the pin button. Yeah, okay. I can tear down an engine, but I can't work a computer, just saying. And once again, I gotta give a huge thanks to everybody that's gone over to my Amazon wish list. It's been like Christmas every day. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting the channel the way you do. So guys, thanks again for tuning in to Chickanic. If you haven't found us on Facebook yet, find us at facebook.com/Chickanic. Find us at Instagram at The Real Chickanic, or find me at Chickanic.com where you get your own t-shirts, hoodies, and long sleeve shirts. Thanks guys, and have a Merry Christmas.